And thank you for watching. There have been many situations in my life that were supposed to teach me things, and every time I failed to learn those things, the problems kept reoccurring over and over, ultimately forcing me into a corner. And when you're so down, the only way to look is up. You are pushed into having to reevaluate the way you look at things and how you lead your life. And in my case, that was the beginning of exploring psychology and spirituality. And when I started assimilating both, I began to expand my mind and awareness in ways I have never achieved before. I like to share that blended approach on my channel and then mix in practicality and structure, and then we have these videos. So just to be clear, because I assume I won't be the only person to ever feel a little confused at first over the term ego, we typically associate this word with vanity or cockiness, an inflated sense of self and superiority to others, and that is one of the primary meanings of the word. But there's also that second part, which refers to your consciousness and sense of identity. There's a duality to you. There's your authentic self, which is that compassionate and loving you. That's who you truly are. And then there's your ego or false self, a you that is based on life's events and social conditioning. It's the you that's not coming from a true place, but the you who has doubts and is consumed by how people perceive you. If you've ever had a thought along the lines of, what are they going to think of me? Or if you've been overly critical or analytical of yourself, you should watch this. You should take down some notes and watch every 6 months or so as a refresher. I recommend watching this when you have a few minutes to spare, because if you skip through, you will probably miss some good critical information. Also, every time you see this today, I'd like for you to write down the idea that will follow in the video. It'll be very important for you to have references. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and let's get started. I hope you'll enjoy. Freud's idea was that the human psyche has more than one aspect, and it's rather structured into 3 parts that develop at different stages in your life. They are the ID, the ego, and the superego. And although they each have their own unique features, they form a whole, and each side makes a contribution to what ultimately constitutes your individual behavior. The ID is the primitive part and consists of all the inherited components of personality, what you're born with basically. It's the unconscious and impulsive part of your psyche, and it's all we have when we're born, and then eventually the ID develops an ego and the superego. The ID is selfish and wishful in nature. It's not something that changes or develops in any way during our lifetimes. It's not in touch with the external world, therefore it's not affected by time and experiences. It simply operates within the unconscious part of our minds. Now, the ego is, according to Freud, that part of the ID which has been modified by the direct influence of the external world. He also made the analogy of the ID being a horse and the ego being the rider, simply pointing the ID in the right direction. The ego has no concept of right or wrong. It simply participates in thinking processes that are more rational and oriented towards solving problems. Essentially, trying to find strategies to get the pleasures that will satisfy the ID's demands. Does that make sense? Because outside of realism, the ego lacks positive complexity. We often compromise true satisfaction in order to simply meet primitive demands and or the demands of society. Now, the superego is usually developed around the age of 4, and it incorporates the values and morals of society which are typically learned from our parents or just seeing other people. The superego is there to control the ID's primitive impulses, especially the ones that are considered unacceptable by society, and it has 2 parts, the conscious self and the ideal self. The conscience can punish the ego. For example, if the ego gave into a demand the ID had, then the superego will bring punishment, which may be in the form of that person feeling bad about something they did or feeling guilty over it. On another note, the ideal self is the imaginary picture of what you should be, and any behavior which falls short of that ideal may be punished through guilt and feelings of failure. So when we're talking about ego, we're not talking about something bad, but rather something misguided. Now, one of the biggest symptoms of ego is materialism, attaching your self-worth with objects like a car, a house, clothing, jewelry, basically created things, and that is how marketers and advertisers make a living. Other manifestations are feeling inferior, the fear of judgment and failure, being stuck in the past, stubbornness, quick temper and reacting angry easily, negativity and seeing life in limitations, self-sabotage, unwillingness or inability to show emotions, unproductivity, etc. If you see yourself in any of these, don't feel bad, because you are not alone. In the grand scheme of things, as people, we just want to love and be loved. But in many cases, life turns that want into a need to be loved and a need for approval. A little voice then starts doubting, questioning, imagining. And when living in that space, you start feeling scarcity, start feeling the need to control, etc. That's the ego that we're talking about today. That little voice that controls your thoughts, your reactions, and what you identify with. Now, we can't get rid of ego, but we can let go of the things that are not in alignment with our true substance and true goals. The first step for me was learning to relinquish control. I would have to describe myself as a control freak in any and all aspects of life. I'm a backseat driver, the kind of person that needs to respond to every hateful comment occasionally left on my videos in an attempt to maintain some control. I need to have my day organized, and that goes beyond the productivity factor. It's the need to know that I have control over what will happen in my day. All unfortunate things that don't exactly take one on a path of greatness. So the first step for me was learning to relinquish control. Can't do it all at once, but situational and little by little, it absolutely can be done. Start practicing that. Number two is an obvious one, but it has to be addressed, and that is to get in touch with your authentic self and identify your true motivation. The best way I found to get in touch with my true self was by first learning more about how I was when I was a kid. Likes, dislikes, what I wanted to be, what hobbies I had, what I enjoyed doing in my spare time. I actually forgot a lot of that and have been asking my mom and continue asking her a lot of those questions in hope of reconnecting with the old me that wasn't so tainted, if that makes sense. Secondly, I started asking myself these next questions. What do I like? Why do I like it? What do I want? Why do I want it? What would make me really happy and why? I ask myself this so much. If I look at something and think, oh, that's so cute, I got into the habit of asking myself then, why do I think it's cute? Meditation is a really big element in the process of digging for your true self, but that takes time and practice to master. I mentioned to you in the past that one way to help silence the voices in your head if you want to meditate is by listening to them as opposed to trying to mute them, because that is when they typically get louder. Another way to search for your true self is to sit still. Literally, sit down and stay still. You don't have to consider this meditation time. You can think of whatever you want. The practice is simply about not moving. This will hopefully come easy to you, but you will be surprised just how hard it is to sit there for many of us, especially for 15 minutes twice a week, which is the goal of this. If 15 minutes is just too much, you can start with 5 minutes or 1 minute. Just start doing it and doing it twice a week, every week, and keep track of your progress. Next, using terms like mine and I am is a dangerous thing. Unless it's used in a positive affirmative state, like I am love, I am patience, I am kindness, etc. I am is an identification term which can lock you in a certain spot or role or circumstance that is limiting and may not fit you this time next week or next year, thus limiting your life experiences. This identification is also a factor that leads to depression. Yes, you may be a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, but remember that the stronger you identify with these positions of who you are, the more prone you are to depression. You should feel what you want to feel, not because you have a specific role or title. If your sense of importance resulted out of this sort of identification, you then have no real sense of value. I used to say, this is my car, it's my house, they're my achievements, my skills, and when I lost the car, the house, and forgot skills, and ended up having so little I considered mine, that opened the door for the downward spiral. Now I changed the way I carry conversations with myself and with other people. Yes, I am a wife, but I identify as an individual simply enjoying life with a partner I love. When asked, I tell people I'm a video content creator so they understand within society definitions what I do, but I am not that. I'm just a little person in a big world who gets to work on things that she loves. I hope that makes sense. Change that dialogue and you change your life. Tip number 4 is to let go of strict definitions. Life is not black and white, and neither are people. There are a bazillion shades in between, and when I learned to accept that things are not that serious, they are not that strict, and almost never that clearly defined. That's when I started becoming more acceptant, and acceptance is an ego crusher. Take people and situations with a grain of salt. Next time somebody's behavior bothers you, for example, remember this video. People are just different, and most things are not personal attacks to you or direct issues with you. Half the time they're not even about you or even that serious to be consumed by. Most times these issues simply live in our head because we have definitions and margins for things and situations that are just too strict. Number 5 is to stop comparing yourself to others. I do this too. It's easy to do, but it's an activity that's entirely founded on imagination, incomplete, and many times even false representation. Comparing yourself to other people is the main source of power for the ego, and as your accomplishments and life in general don't seem to balance out with somebody else's situation, the ego will start chasing after false wants. You'll feel unsatisfied, disappointed, inferior. Self-worth is totally subjective. You have a value that is impossible to measure or exchange, and comparing yourself to somebody else will only encourage your mediocrity. I wish there would be a trick out there that we can do to instantly stop the comparisons, but there's no such thing. And really, the most powerful step in stopping the comparison is the awareness, being able to catch yourself in that moment doing it so you can make modifications. Watching this video will absolutely help because it will stick with you and you will remember it. And next time you do that comparison, you'll hopefully remember this and in that moment change what you're doing and instead focus on something that serves you instead, like maybe doing something that will make you laugh or feel some happiness. Tip number 6 is to take a look at your productivity. Ego overload of any kind can be detrimental to your success, and I say of any kind because if you feel like you're not good enough, the quality of your work and productivity in general will be a reflection of that mindset. If you think that you're better than everybody else, your work also suffers because you'll be far more likely to start cutting corners, pushing work for I can do that tomorrow, and that of course is not good either. So take an unbiased, analytical look at the quality of your work and start keeping track of how you're spending your time and on what. Next idea is to think about the sources of any anxiety you may feel. I wouldn't be surprised if a big portion of the anxieties are pertaining to the future or the past, essentially being anxious over something you can't control. Now, of course, dealing with anxiety is much easier said than done, but I've made a video about some different things you can try right now and I'll link it below. That will definitely help. But worrying about the future is a waste of time. So when you catch yourself doing it, ask yourself, do I know 100% that this scenario will happen for sure? Odds are, in most cases, the answer will be no. Next question, is there anything I can do about this right now? If the answer is no again, just pay attention for 1 minute to your breath. Focus only on trying to hear it. Take deep breaths in and out, and that will help calm you down. Being stuck in the past is also a trap. So ask yourself what you can proactively and realistically do about changing the past. There is a high likelihood that there won't be much to do aside from acknowledging the lessons you were supposed to learn and start thinking about how to proactively act on them moving forward. Talking about breathing, a good exercise to help tame the ego is to sit down somewhere comfortably, close your eyes, and breathe deeply in and out. Focus your body and attention on that breath. You are now in the moment and you're aware of it. After a few deep breaths, I'd like for you to start focusing on the actual air you breathe in and out. As you breathe it in, you can feel how cool it is. And as you breathe it out, you can feel its warmth. Anytime a thought tries to creep in, revert your attention back to hearing and feeling your breath. That will absolutely cancel out the thought. Now, during those moments, while you breathe like that, you'll be living with no ego and no thoughts other than just being present. And that, my friend, is a huge step forward. We only have time for a couple more tips today, and I will email the rest to your inbox since nobody likes 30-minute videos. So, tip number 9 is to cut down any complaining because that keeps you locked in negativity. It doesn't matter if the complaints are about you, someone, or something else. Just try this out for a few days and see how you feel. Lastly, I will give you a great reason why you should engage in activities that are outside your comfort zone. We judge ourselves in relation to our experience experiences. And when we do that, we limit ourselves and our future opportunities. So when you say, I would never do that, you are putting human boundaries around an existence, your existence, which was created with a universal purpose much bigger than our human minds can comprehend at this moment in time. So practice this every week or every month, whatever works for you and your schedule. Just do something that makes you feel uncomfortable on a consistent basis. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Give this video a kind thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share it with your loved ones to keep the good karma flowing. My social media sites are linked below. Make sure to stay connected with me, and definitely go to my website to sign up for the free email newsletter. I am so thankful that you're here. Thank you, my friend, and I'll see you again shortly in a new video.